We begin tonight with Senate President Tito Sotto's statement on the call of petitioners to temporarily stop the canvassing for votes for president. This as they await the Supreme Court to settle their cancellation petition against the certificate of candidacy of President-elect Ferdinand Marcos Jr. Senate President Sotto warns of a constitutional crisis should Congress fail to canvass votes before its last session on June 3. Time for today's biggest headlines. I'm Gretchen Ho. You're watching The Big Story. With petitions against the candidacy of presumptive President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. now in the hands of the Supreme Court, Senate President Vicente Sotto warned of a, quote, constitutional crisis should the High Court grant the petition seeking to suspend the canvassing of votes. Mobile journalist Pamela Vasquez with The Big Story.
A constitutional crisis. This was Senate President Tito Sotto's warning should the Supreme Court grant two petitions to stop the vote canvassing for presumptive President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. This came after some groups raised their bids to the SC, one to disqualify Marcos Jr. and one to cancel his COC. Both petitions seek a temporary restraining order against both chambers of the Congress. But for Sotto, such move will cause a dilemma as the 18th Congress is set to adjourn on June 3. And by the time lawmakers meet again, it will already be under a new administration. Sotto also questioned that if the SC favors the petitioners, who will then conduct the canvass of votes? For his part, Senate Minority Leader Franklin Drilon believes the petitions would not prosper. Drilon said the High Tribunal cannot restrain Congress from performing its constitutional duty of canvassing votes and proclaiming the winner. The Senate and the House of Representatives are set to resume sessions next week. They will begin the official count of votes for President and Vice President. Speaking to the Chiefs, former SC spokesperson Theodore Te expressed optimism that the SC would reconsider COMELEC's decision on the cancellation of Marcos Jr.'s candidacy.
Kasi siyempre, eleksyon ang pinag-uusapan, no? So they're a bit more strict siguro, if I may call it that, no? So let's just say I'm cautiously optimistic. Let's just put it that way.
Meanwhile, the SC earlier ordered the COMELEC, Marcos Jr. and both chambers of Congress to comment on the petition seeking to cancel the presumptive president's candidacy. The SC is giving the respondents 15 days to file their comments. Mobile journalist Pamela Vasquez, We Are One News.
What does an expert think of this constitutional crisis warning by Senate President Tito Sotto? To answer that question, Integrated Bar of the Philippines former President Attorney Domingo Cayosa is joining us live via Zoom. Attorney Cayosa, good evening. Welcome to The Big Story.
Good evening, Gretchen.
Attorney, given the Senate President's statements today, it seems we're pressed for time. Your reaction to warnings of a constitutional crisis, and can cancellation be pursued beyond proclamation?
First, the fear of the Senate President of a constitutional crisis does not appreciate the provisions of the Constitution and jurisprudence. I don't think there will be any constitutional crisis because if first of all, we should not speculate or preempt the Supreme Court. We should encourage it instead to resolve the issues sooner than later.
But first of all, does the Supreme Court have jurisdiction to halt the proclamation as well as the canvassing of votes?
Well, there are two views on that. But what is clear is that any question about the qualification or the candidacy of the president or the vice president, the Supreme Court is the sole arbiter. So it has authority. Secondly, a petition is brought before it. But if you look at the rules and the students, the Supreme Court or even the courts rarely grant TROs. So it's a long shot that they will issue a TRO. And even if there's a TRO, and the present Congress term ends, the new Congress can do the canvassing eventually.
Pero pwede naman po din tapusin yung pagbibilang and then to follow po yung decision from the Supreme Court. Am I right?
Yes, regardless of the result of the canvassing, the Supreme Court can continue discussing and deciding the petitions. And if the Supreme Court finds that the certificate of candidacy is void from the very beginning, and as if Senator Marcos did not run. So the next highest number of votes the presidential race will assume. Now, the other petition is on disqualification. So in that case, the vice president-elect will take over in the meantime.
Okay, Attorney Cayosa, given the merits of the case, I think there are two ways it would go: cancellation and also following the will of the people. And Attorney Ted De said last night on the Chiefs, I believe, that he was cautiously optimistic with the Supreme Court handling this case, given their record in the past. Do you share the same optimism?
Well, I share the same care because there's a legal maxim that the voice of the people is the voice of God. So they can use it as a general legal maxim. But despite that, we expect the Supreme Court to rule on this based on the merits, not based on politics. And if you look at the petition, it's really an uphill climb. But we cannot also second guess the Supreme Court. What we can pray is that they resolve this and the merits sooner than later.
All right, thank you very much. That was Attorney Domingo Cayosa, former president of the Integrated Bar of the Philippines. Still on the canvassing of votes, Senate Majority Leader Mig Zubiri calls for Congress to uphold its duty and proceed with the count for the presidential and vice presidential posts on May 24. In his statement, Zubiri says that the canvassing of votes is Congress' duty to ensure the peaceful transfer of power. Zubiri also stresses the importance of state leaders as a delay in canvassing would only promote instability. These are the other big stories tonight. The Department of Agriculture warns of a looming food crisis by the second half of the year as the price of fertilizers and feeds start to rise in the global market. Meanwhile, a health expert fears the Philippines could see more than 500 COVID cases per day with the local transmission of the highly contagious Omicron subvariant. And Dr. Taylor Swift, pop icon Taylor Swift, was given an honorary doctorate of fine arts as she delivers her commencement speech at New York University. More of these big stories after the break. still watching The Big Story, I'm Gretchen Ho. A recent SWS survey shows almost half of all Filipino households consider themselves poor. But this might worsen as the Agricultural Department warns of a looming food crisis. Shaila Francisco with the story.
With 2 kids, Sarah tries to squeeze 10,000 pesos per month for her budget, along with her income from side jobs. Sarah said that 500 pesos a day is not enough with the rising prices in basic commodities.
Isi-set aside mo yung yung pangangailangan ninyo, yung kunwari may gusto ka, hindi na muna.
Just like Sarah, more Filipinos still consider themselves poor. In an SWS survey, the number of self-rated poor families rose to 10.9 million as of April this year. The survey also shows that the minimum monthly budget families need to not consider themselves poor went up from 12,000 pesos to 15,000 pesos. But the problem doesn't stop there.
The Agriculture Department warns of a looming food crisis by the second semester of this year. If this happens, the country could face supply tightness or shortages, which could lead to higher prices of commodities.
This is driven by higher fuel prices, the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, and the ongoing tensions between Ukraine and Russia. Fertilizers and feed prices are already going up in the global market.
So, kukunti ang mabili sa global market. That's why tayo ay nagwa-warning at gumagawa din ng paraan para makapaghanda tayo.
However, DAR said that they are ready to handle the problem as the country still has enough food supply. The DA is asking for an additional 24 billion peso budget to help in their interventions like providing fertilizer subsidies. They are also hoping the National Food Authority will be given additional budget to increase their buffer stock of rice to 30 days from the current 7 days. But one group is blaming Agriculture Secretary William Dar for the food crisis.
Siya may kagagawan niyan. Ito nangyayari ito. Dahil pinaliit niya kulang ang suporta sa local agriculture.
Think tank Ibon Foundation believes that increasing wages can help the public to deal with the looming crisis.
May dalawang bahaging food crisis eh. Una yung pagtaas ng presyo ng pagkain at yung kakulangan ng pambili na hindi sumapat yung pagtaas ng minimum wage sa pagtaas ng presyo ng bilihin.
However, the Labor Department has reservations on the proposal. Shaila Francisco, we are One News.
Filipinos have been very familiar with the use of drones during the 2022 elections, but what about its use in farming? Mobile journalist Yeda Pascual shows us how it's done in this report.
From 3 hours to just 10 minutes, technology is set to take agriculture to greater heights as the Agriculture Department introduces drone farming.
This drone seed is operated just like a normal drone. Only difference is that it has an aerial seeding technology. DA said that this will help evenly distribute seeds and is more efficient. In fact, it slashes 2 to 3 hours of farming to just 7 to 10 minutes.
Sa halip po na nagsasabog tanim tayo, dry seeding po ang tawag nila, gagamit po tayo ng drone para po even po yung distribution at mabilis.
Aside from this, drones also lessen the cost of farming. Traditionally, 60 to 120 kilograms of seed would be needed per hectare. But using this method, farmers would only need 15 to 30 kilos. Drones do come with a hefty price of 1 million pesos apiece. With this, the DA Region 12 assured the farmers that they will provide the drones for free.
Ang importante po ay meron po silang ma-access. So we are planning na sa bawat major cluster ay meron po kaming may po-provide na drone.
As of now, drone farming has only been tried in Sultan Kudarat and North Cotabato.
As they say, if you ate today, thank a farmer. With these technological advancements, farmers can sure get a much-needed helping hand to boost their productivity. Mobile journalist Yeda Pascual, we are One News.
In COVID news, some parts of the country have rolled out its second COVID-19 booster shot for senior citizens and health workers. This comes amid the detection of the more transmissible Omicron subvariant BA.2.12.1. Infectious diseases expert Dr. Ronjean Solante warned that COVID infections could increase to more than 500 cases a day due to the new subvariant, especially in areas with low vaccine coverage and in dense populations like NCR.
call her Dr. Taylor Swift. The 11-time Grammy Award winner is proving that she is multifaceted. She received on Thursday an honorary doctorate of fine arts from New York University.
Last time I was in a stadium this size, I was dancing in heels and wearing a glittery leotard. This outfit is much more comfortable.
Despite not having a full college experience, Swift went all out with giving the graduating students tips on how to navigate the real world.
Learn to live alongside cringe. Cringe is unavoidable over a lifetime. Even the term cringe might someday be deemed cringe.
Among the crowd is one lucky Filipino Swiftie, Vice Presidential daughter Jillian Robredo. Robredo is one of NYU's graduates with a double degree in mathematics and economics. In an Instagram story, Jillian couldn't help but be giddy as she shared the clip of Taylor Swift with the caption, "Queen of My Heart." Accompanying Jillian Robredo in her glorious moment are her sisters, Aika, Trisha, and stage mom Vice President Lenny Robredo. For News 5, Laila Pangilinan, we are One News.
Time for another quick break. More of the big stories when we return. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Gretchen Ho. As the newly created Department of Migrant Workers is expected to be set in motion soon, presumptive President Ferdinand Marcos taps OFW advocate Susan Ople to spearhead the department. But for Ople, certain conditions should first be put in place. Mobile journalist Jacob Lazaro with the report.
Others may jump at the chance to join the cabinet of presumptive President Bongbong Marcos, but Susan Toots Ople asked Marcos for some time to think about it first. Ople was summoned to the headquarters of Marcos last week to be invited to be his first secretary of the newly created Department of Migrant Workers.
Probably next week, I would have a clearer parang decision point, no? Kasi I'll be talking to some sabihin na natin mga influencers.
A longtime advocate for labor and migrant worker reforms, Ople also heads the Blas Ople Policy Center, an NGO that gives assistance to OFWs. In an interview with One News The Chiefs, Ople said the challenge of putting up a new department from scratch is massive.
May tatlong requirements, di ba? Ma-publish yung IRR, which has been fulfilled. Magkaroon ng DBM-approved staffing pattern na wala pa.
Yan.
And then, mahabol sa budget for 2023.
Ople says she also wants a guarantee that she would have the full support for reforms she wants to put in place. And more than that, Ople has to consult her family and close advisors. Ople has been struggling with breast cancer since 2020, and her health may become an issue with the enormity of the task. Labor Secretary Silvestre Bello III says the incoming Migrant Workers Secretary will have the DOLE's backing.
We were in favor from the very start. Then DOLE will be focusing on local employment.
But in the end, if she does take the job, Ople says the objective is to turn the new department into a home away from home for those who are far away from their homeland. Mobile journalist Jacob Lazaro, we are One News.
For the big stories in sports, another day, another opportunity for the Philippines to raise its gold medal tally in the 31st Southeast Asian Games. A look into some of the performances of our Filipino athletes in my report. The gold medal rush continues for the Philippines in the 31st Southeast Asian Games in Vietnam. Seaball bagged its first esports gold in the SEA Games as Grinsky Aries completed a sweep in the Women's League of Legends Wild Rift. Charisse Doble, Cristina Natividad, Rose Ann Robles, Gianna Llanes, April Sotto, and Angel Lozada dominated Singapore 3-0 in the finals to become the first women champions in SEA Games esports history.
And here we go, Asadamir goes down.
Meanwhile, in Mobile Legends, defending champion Seaball is up for gold medal contention after outlasting Singapore 2-1.
Lakad matatag Pilipinas 2-1! What a play!
In bowling, Merwin Tan secured the second gold in the men's team bowling event. The quartet of Tan, Christian Dichanco, Ivan Malig, and Patrick Nuki reigned supreme, finishing with 5,275 pinfalls. The Philippines likewise bagged its first gold in judo as Rina Furukawa topped the women's 57kg division with a win over Myanmar. And to wrap up its SEA Games athletics campaign, Christine Halasgo clinched silver medal in the women's marathon. Halasgo clocked in 2:56.07, finishing a minute short of defending her 2019. Gretchen Hall, We Are One News. With Indonesia and Singapore bagging a few more golds earlier today, the Philippines dropped to 4th in the medal tally of the 31st Southeast Asian Games. Indonesia is ahead by 2 gold medals as compared to the Philippines. So far, the country has over 40 gold medals, 57 silvers, and 78 bronzes. The Philippines can expect more medals to come as boxing and basketball teams have yet to wrap up their campaign. Meanwhile, Filipino pool legend Efren Bata Reyes gets some rockstar treatment at the men's one-cushion Karom semifinals in Vietnam. Vietnamese billiards fans waited for Efren Bata Reyes outside the venue chanting his name. One even brought his portrait of Reyes. Security was tight though, but he managed to sneak a wave at his fans. Reyes, who is also known as the Magician, bagged the bronze medal in the 31st Southeast Asian Games after succumbing to his Vietnamese opponent Nguyen Tran Tan Tu. And that wraps up today's big story. Catch us again tomorrow at 8 p.m. on Signal Channels 8 and 250. Please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, visit our webpage, onenews.ph. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. On behalf of Robbie Alampay, I'm Gretchen Ho, and we are One News.